Alright, trying this again. I put in my earbuds now because I know I'm watching a video in a second. So we're at the very last paragraph of the reading. So I learned a great many new words that day. I do not remember what they all were, but I do know that mother, father, sister, teacher were among them. So learning about connections to other people, I guess, was a really important part. Words that were to make the world blossom for me, like Aaron's rod with flowers. I don't know what that means. It would have been difficult to find a happier child than I was as I lay in my crib at the close of that eventful day and lived over the joys it had brought me, and for the first time longed for a new day to come. So this was a really big deal for her, emotionally speaking. Not like, I know I mentioned, not only does she know that things have names, but there's much more cognitive development going on. Just learning that, I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to say, connections to other people. So earlier she was talking about how she didn't feel sentiment and tenderness, I guess because of the lack of ability to express connection towards another person. I guess it's hard to tell if just learning the word for mother can actually make you feel a stronger connection towards your mother, perhaps, if you had absolutely nothing to go off of before that. Let me go ahead and read the questions. Why is it important for the reader to understand Keller's state of mind in the days preceding the events she describes? For example, in paragraph 6, she says, "In the still dark world which I lived, there was no strong sentiment or tenderness." Why would not being able to name objects make it impossible for her to feel strong sentiment or tenderness? So I was just kind of talking about this, but the fact that being able to label things, hold on one second. So I was talking about emotional connections, talking about cognitive development in a way. I'm going to go at this from a psychological perspective, talking about how, learning these words brought her into a new state of understanding. And I think understanding in any case, taking it even out of the context of a deaf, blind person trying to learn language, understanding anything can give you a stronger emotional connection to it. Learning about other cultures or other people's perspectives can make you more emotionally connected to that kind of stimulus. So just bringing it even to the basics of learning the name of an item or a person in your life can give you a stronger emotional connection, being able to label something like that. Next question. Why was it important for Annie Sullivan to make Keller realize that the spelled out doll could refer to both her big rag doll and the new doll? What principle of language is involved here? It's called generalization. It's probably not the right word, but being able to understand that the word doll, the actual word, can relate to two non-identical stimuli. Pretty important. How did Keller's breakthrough bring a sense of order and connection to her limited existence and allow her to enter a world where mother, father, sister, teacher were named? I sort of already talked about that. Order and connection is definitely a big thing, because I guess, the opposite of order I'm thinking about is chaos. What she had before probably wasn't even chaos. It was just nothingness, which might even be worse than chaos, depending on who you ask. But being able to create order out of nothingness has to be a huge deal. So much more than you think about when you just think, oh, she learned words. How does the simile Keller uses in paragraph 3 communicate her condition in ways that a literal description would not? Can you think of other similes or metaphors? So I think she uses that simile because it really is perfectly unfathomable to someone who can see and hear and has been able to do so their whole life. You just literally can never understand what that's like. So being able to use one of the only senses that she shares with us, the sense of touch, because everybody can feel like a dense fog everybody can feel, like, just air density in general. When the air is dense, you feel it. You know, everybody, that's a shared sense of being able to feel when there's a fog or a denseness in the air. So even as someone who is deaf and blind can feel that difference in the air. So it's like probably one of the only ways that you could communicate something like that. And it does a good job. It's a very good metaphor. What is the main idea or narrative point of Keller's essay? I guess because the main thing you get about Helen Keller's story in history is just that she was blind and deaf and learned how to communicate. And that's about it. And it's like, you know, oh, big achievement, which it is. It's a huge achievement. But learning about the emotional and cognitive hurdles that she had to go through is something you don't really talk about how, first of all of the strife and anxiety, probably depression, you know, all this emotional trauma she had to go through in A, not having language, B, learning language, had to have been so frustrating and stressful. And then the emotional relief from finally understanding and having that aha moment. Just trying to connect to this historical figure on an emotional level is something you don't get from anything other than the personal description of your experience. And I've never been temporarily physically incapacitated, so number 6 doesn't really apply to me. All right, cool reading. Yeah, that's the end of it. Really cool. Always great to get a perspective from someone, you know, where you only get half of the story, but being able to get an inside scoop, especially, you know, when you think about someone who can see and hear, you have an idea of how they perceive the world, at least on a sensory standpoint. But there's absolutely no way for someone to imagine what being deaf and blind could be like. It's so deeply incapacitating that the fact that this woman could overcome that and still be able to feel joy in learning and understanding is cool. Really cool. And thinking about how her words, learning new words, opened her mind to thought itself is kind of funky. Because she mentioned, you know, in the text about how learning each new word gives her a new capacity for thought. So you have to think it's the whole, you know, which comes first, language or thought, right? What language do you think in when you don't have language? Which is what this girl had for 7 years. So thinking about, you know, what was inside her brain before she had doll and water and mother and father. What was it like in there? I have no idea. But the fact that from Keller's perspective, language directly influenced thought in that unidirectional pattern. So now we're at the YouTube video, How Helen Keller Learned to Talk. This is an old-timey video. Oh, only living record of Annie Sullivan's voice. It's nice that there's got that physical closeness. This is probably related to Keller mentioning how this woman, you know, showed her love for the first time, basically. Oh, interesting. That doesn't look comfortable at all, the whole hand on the face thing. Okay, so she can feel the vibrations. Aw. Oh, look, Helen Keller's got this big smile on her face. You can tell the sensory feedback is very rewarding. Just feeling the movement and the vibrations is probably very rewarding. It was cute that she was smiling. That's so awkward. I would not want someone to do that to me. Okay. She can feel the vibrations, but does that mean anything to her? Like, ooh, vibrations, lips moving, but like, it doesn't mean anything. Oh. Oh, she can reproduce the sound as she's feeling it. So she can feel it and actually reproduce it. So that's cool. I have to wonder if that actually translates into meaning in Helen Keller's mind, though. Because she learned language through the whole hand drawing thing. So does making these sounds actually mean anything to her? Okay, so she's learning to say a word. But does that mean anything? Sure, she's got it. She can say it. But does that mean anything to her? Or is it just some weird sound? Aww, that was actually really cute. Okay, so she can say, I am not done now. And just from the way she said it, I could tell she understood what it meant. Because especially what was really interesting, when she said the word not, she shook her head. When she said the word not, she said not. So she understood what not means. She must have understood what that sentence meant. But I still have to feel like that form of communication had to have really limited possibilities for her. She can only speak when she's repeating somebody else's words and feeling it through her hand and being able to speak it. So I have to wonder if it's possible for her to spontaneously create meaningful sound without having the hand on someone else's face. I don't know, because they don't show that. I have to imagine that that's impossible, or at least extremely limited for her. But really cool video. It's neat that they were able to show that visual representation of how she learned. Really cool. I enjoyed that.